Welcome back to the channel, Spartan Nation. This is Spartan Grimlock here, and I'm bringing you guys another review. Today, we are going to take the time to review the giant robotic space chicken known as Gigan. He first debuted in 1972 in the Godzilla vs. Gigan movie, and I have to say, what I see on the turntable looks amazing. They took every bit of attention to detail for this figure, and it looks very accurate to how the suit looked in the Showa Classic. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Before we dive into the figure itself, I just wanted to take a moment to show off the box, and I have to say, Bandai did a great job with this box. We got a nice promotional picture of Gigan with the fire burning in the background, like when he was destroying the city in the 72 Classic. We've got our little buttons here at the bottom, your Godzilla logo, your Gigan logo, and then Godzilla, your Tamashii Nation's quality sticker, Namco across the front, and then we have Godzilla vs. Gigan in kanji next to, I guess it's the 50th year logo for Gigan. So I guess we've had the big old space chicken for 50 years now. Pretty cool. And if you didn't know, he is one of my favorite from the Showa era. Then we've got a nice shot of the box on the side here, a nice little monochromatic picture of Gigan. Looks really nice. Then we have the back here with a couple promotional shots of the figure, just kind of showcasing off his buzzsaw flight mode. Got a nice little pose here for him. And then, of course, the other side of the box just has his name, and the fire's continuing. You can just see a little bit of his sail back here. But yeah, pretty neat. I think they've been doing a really good job on these boxes for the show-off figures, and I hope they continue that. But you guys didn't click on my video to look at a figure box. No, you didn't click on it for that. So let's get this out of the way and get right into the review. So like I said earlier, I think Bandai did a really great job with the sculpt for this figure. He's definitely accurate to how he looked in the Showa Classic. But we're going to take a little bit closer look at his articulation. Just zoom him in here a little quick. So we've got Gigan's head here, and he's got his classic mandibles. I'll just show they have some articulation to them, which is pretty neat. I like that. He has some articulation in the mouth, not a whole lot, but his mouth can open, and you can see back in there, they did even sculpt the little hook in the back of his mouth. That's pretty cool. I like that attention to detail. Now, his neck, on mine at least, is a little stiff, but he can get a little bit of a look-down motion, but he can't really look up too high, and I think it's because of that sail on the back. Mind you, these sails on his back have moderate articulation where they can just fan out, but they are made of a hard like plastic, and I'm afraid they could break if you try and handle them too much. As always, the figure can do this. He can look side to side. Like I said, my head is very stiff on him, so yeah, you can hear those joints. Nice tight joints. But yeah, he can get some good articulation in the neck. Not too much. I'm afraid of just manhandling him too much and then breaking him. He has a little bit of articulation in the arm. He can raise his arm up so high. He has one joint here, so he doesn't get a whole lot of bend in the arm, but enough. So it's very accurate to how the suit functioned in the old movie, which I'm really okay with. He can get a 360-degree motion on the arm. Let's get that hook out of the way. But yeah, the arm gets 360-degree motion. He does not have any kind of an ab crunch like any of the Godzilla figures due to the giant buzzsaw on his chest, but I wasn't expecting him to have any joints in the midsection. It didn't seem like it would work, and it feels like it would be a nightmare for them to just sculpt that in. As far as the hook hand goes, we do have a ball joint on there, so he can get some good range of motions, get some nice little posing out of him. The leg has a good bit of motion on it. His legs can do the splits. Pretty sure that would be painful for him. He has a double jointed knee, which we get a nice good range of motion on that. Both legs have that. And then, of course, there is a ball joint in both feet, which allows for his foot to have like kind of an ankle pivot, which is pretty nice, so you can get some more of those complex poses. And then lastly, of course, his tail, which is made of a bunch of ball joints. And I have to say, I like how his tail came out in comparison to his Final Wars variation due to the sheer fact that that one's tail is kind of a nightmare. Because a lot of the hooks and stuff get caught on one another. I did notice one thing that I would like to point out to y'all. If you kind of see it, the mandibles are kind of off on mine. I was trying to finesse them back into place, but I'm afraid of what kind of joint they use for it because it's a hinge, and I don't want to break it. So yeah. Anyway, that's the articulation for the figure. Like I did tell you, there's a little bit of articulation in the sails in the back, but not a whole lot. So it's not really necessary to show that off. But yeah, as far as painting goes, though, I really think they knocked it out of the park and really killed it with how they painted this figure. We've got this glorious silver painting in his spines, on his head, the hooked hands, his buzzsaw, the tip of his tail. You can see it's got some weathering to it, which is pretty nice. Got a little bit of a black wash going in there along the spines of the tail. Just show you that right there. And there's a little bit of a black wash in the spines on his head, on his hooked claws. I like that. Definitely very color accurate. Got a nice gold paint here. I know that Reveltech did one, and I was never a fan of how that one was painted, because it was more of like kind of a tannish, brownish color for his scales right here. And then they had like kind of like a tealish green for that. And then here you have this very accurate blackish, greenish paint that they did for it. And I think this looks beautiful. It's a beautiful representation of the figure, or sorry, the suit in figure form. And then of course we have this clear plastic right here for the red for his visor, which I think is pretty neat. I like that. Definitely would have been really cool if we had like a light up effect in there. That'd be really neat, but then that would have made the figure cost even more than he already was. But yeah, he is a really good figure. I am very glad that I have him added to my collection. Like I said, he is by far one of my favorite of the Showa era Godzillas and monsters, and I really like him. I think he's a faithful recreation of a classic kaiju. And yeah, but we're going to jump away from the paint and the detail, and we're going to go into a size comparison now. I think Gigan scales really well with a lot of the SH Monsterarts. I wished Anguirus here from the Reveltech line could have scaled better with him, but it's the closest that I'm ever going to get for an Anguirus figure. He is by far my favorite non-Godzilla kaiju as far as his friends go. But yeah, you can see he scales pretty well with Gigan, kind of. He's a little shorter than he probably should have been and a less bulkier. But I'm kind of holding out hope that eventually we'll get a Tamashii Nations Anguirus for the Showa era. Another comparison we've got Gigan next to Godzilla 1954, and you can see he's a lot taller than the 54 Godzilla, which makes sense because I'm pretty sure with each era of Godzilla he grows in height and gets even bigger. Then we're going to take him, we're going to compare him to my new favorite, the Hiya Toys translucent Godzilla, and you can see he literally stands almost about the same height as him just because of that little horn on his head. So that's pretty nice. Like, he scales pretty well with that. I'm kind of hoping maybe we'll get a Showa era Hiya Toys Godzilla. And then lastly, we're going to compare him to his upgraded model from the Final War series. And I really like both these guys, but I have to say, this guy still is kind of a pain with, like I said, with the tail in the back, and a lot of the spines just kind of get hooked up. And then the new guy, our Showa Gigan, I think he's like beautifully done. Like, I've not had any issues with him. Tail works perfectly fine. He's got really good articulation. Would have been nice to have had some articulation for the mandibles on this one, but I don't recall them moving in the movie. So yeah, there's no real disappointment there. It just feels that they could have done that. But there's our Gigan in size comparison. He's definitely scales well with a lot of our figures, definitely with our Hiya Toys. Like I said, hoping that we get some Showa era Hiya Toys Godzilla figures to couple with them. Maybe a 73 Godzilla would be nice, and get a Megalon. eventually. Those are my initial thoughts on the figure. Like, if you happen to find him online at retail price, I definitely say pick him up. Just be very careful, like I said, about the spines. Be careful about, like, the mandibles. I'm not entirely sure how fragile they are, but it would be a shame to have that figure break, because it is a gorgeous figure. It's by far my favorite that Bandai released last year. I love it. I am so glad that I've added this guy to my collection. And I'm hoping that some of y'all feel the same way too. I mean, if you have thoughts about him, if you own him, go ahead, tell me down in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. Is it something that you would like to add to your collection? Is it something that you've already added to your collection? But yeah, and if you like this kind of content, as the beginning of the video hinted at, make sure you hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and click the bell so you get some notifications and let you know when the next video comes up. With that, I'm going to let you all go for the day, and I will catch you all on the flip side.